Beautiful. We're at this awesome point in our application where we want to spin up both. We want to spin up the front end as well as the back end. So our server, because from this point on, we'll work in both places extensively. And technically, you can make an argument that we could set up multiple terminals here. I could spin up the server in, let's say, this one over here, and then the create React app one in the first one. So, of course, I would need to navigate to the folder, the client one. Hopefully, that is clear. And technically, we could do so. I could even go back to my desktop and actually open up the terminal. That is also an option. But at least in my opinion, a better option is to use package by the name of Concurrently, which essentially is just going to be watching for both of them. And if there's ever a change, well, we'll restart that particular process. And if you want to find out more info, you can follow the link that I left here for the package. But the general idea is following, where we want to install. Again, it is my preference to use it as a dev dependency, but you don't have to. If you are a rebel and if you think that your approach is better, I mean, who am I to judge you? So let's go over here. Let's copy and paste the command. So essentially, we're installing the package. And then in the package.json, we'll have to do some acrobatics. And since it's very easy to make a typo, and since I'm pretty much always an expert on how to do that, especially when I'm recording, yes, I will take my sweet time. And I highly suggest that you do the same thing. So first, let's start with something that we already know. We already know how we can spin up the server. In our case, we are just doing that with node-mon server, and that is equal to the start one. Now, the thing is, eventually what I want is for my start command to spin up both the server and the front end. How we can do that? Well, first set this one up as server instead of start. And what is the approach here? Well, let's just rename it. One thing we need to remember, though, that now this one is npm run server. So for the start, we just go with npm start. For the server script, we need to go with npm run server. So let's try that one out. So npm run server, and I should see the log in the console, but I don't. Why? Well, because I'm an expert on making silly mistakes. Did I save the package.json? Of course not. So let me save it. Let me clear the terminal. And now let's try one more time. npm run and server. And it looks like everything is correct because I can see server is listening on port 5000. Okay, that's a beautiful start. Now we want to do the same thing with our client. And in here, the setup is following. We need to come up with a name. So in my case, I'm going to go with client. And then you have multiple flavors. You can either go with npm start. Why? Well, because remember, for create React app, that's the command in the client package.json. Again, very, very important. In the client package.json, what is the command? Here, start. That's why we're using it in our server as well. And then I want to go with --, prefix, and client. Why? Well, because that signals where I'm going to run the npm start. Now, alternatively, you can just go with cd client and npm start. This is really up to you, whichever option you prefer better. And I think I'm going to go with this one. So let me go to the package.json and let me close the client one, because knowing me, I'll probably make the changes over there and then spend half an hour running around like a headless chicken looking for the bug. So let's go here with a client, and then we want to go with npm start --, then we're going to go with prefix, and then we'll set up our folder, which conveniently enough is client. So let me stop my server right now, and let me go with npm run client. Let me see. Yep, I saved the package.json. I mean, that would have been a disaster if I do the same thing twice, but it wouldn't be the first time. So let me wait a little bit. I mean, sometimes it takes a little bit of time. Hopefully everything is correct. And yep, I can see that the front end is spinning up on localhost 3000. And since that is happening, you know what I can do as well? I can actually set them side by side, because like I said, pretty much from now on, we'll be working with both of them. So it kind of makes sense if we have the initial setup. So let's say here that I want the Visual Studio Code on the left-hand side and then the browser on the right-hand side. Again, this is a Mac thing. It has nothing to do with MERN stack. So client works, server works. So now we just want to combine them, correct? So first, let me stop everything. Let me clear my terminal. And then we're looking for the README. And then notice the concurrently package uses the escape codes. So we'll set up the command. I mean, pretty popular is going with dev, but I just find it annoying that I have to go with npm run and then the command name. It's always my preference if I can shorten this up, and that's why I always go with start. I know that for some people it might be a little bit confusing since it's the same command that we used in React. In my case, actually, it's the opposite. I prefer that one. And then we go with concurrently. And this is a doozy. Usually I make some kind of spelling error. Luckily, I have my extension to catch that. And then we have this violent kill others on fail, which sounds very scary. At the end of the day, it just kills the command if one of them dies. So it kills all of them if one of them dies. Again, they probably could have come up with something less violent, but who am I to judge? I didn't create that package. And in here, like I said, we have escape codes, and then we want to run our commands. We want to run server and client, correct? That's what we have in a script. So let's set this one up. We're back in the package JSON. Let's add a comma here, and let's go with start. And then, I mean, this is definitely going to be a doozy, so I will take my sweet time. Concurrently. And hopefully that is correct. Then we have the violent one, kill others on fail. And then let's do those escape quotes where we set up the dash and then the quote. And I'll right away set up both of them. And in between them, you want to run the commands. You want to go with npm run server, correct? And then we have npm run client. So let's do the same thing. Escape quotes, another one. And then inside of it, let's type the sucker npm run and then client. And hopefully I didn't set this up in the client folder. I mean, that would be just hilarious. Now let's run npm start. But there's one last thing that I want to showcase. And I'll do that once both of them are running. So there's one tiny thing that I want to add because while I was developing, I was just hitting some weird bugs if I didn't add that prefix. So at the moment, as you can see, the server is running. I have 5,000. And I also can see nicely my frontend, correct? On 3,000. So let's try everything out, whether everything works. So here in the server, I'm just going to add some dummy code. Regardless where you do that, I'm going to go with log and then hello. That's it. That's all I want to do. And I'll add a few of them just so you can see in our terminal. So now notice, every time I make some changes, what is happening? Well, NodeMon is spinning up my server, correct? So that is cool. Now, also, let's try out the front end where I'm going to go to the client. And since I can see the dashboard page, I mean, it kind of makes sense if I go to pages and then dashboard. And let's just add a page over here. So let's save it. So I can see nicely that the refresh worked. I have the page and I'm starting up the server. Now the problem is this one, these hellos, because what that means that we're also spinning up the server. And while developing the application, I actually run into some issues if this is the case. And in order to resolve those issues, I actually found a fix where we have the NodeMon, we're going to go with -- ignore and client. So this is for the NodeMon npm package, where essentially we're just ignoring this client one. And as a result, when we're making changes here, then we're not going to restart the server, which is very, very important because again, at some point I was just hitting bugs and it was really annoying. So let me stop everything. And then where I have the server, I want to add this ignore client. So -- and then ignore and then client. So let's go back to our package JSON -- ignore. And then we're looking for the client one. And now what you'll notice that if I start up the server again, and of course, now when I'm talking about the server, I'm talking about the entire thing. So I'm talking about the application. So from now on, if I say server, I'm not specifically talking about the Express server. I'm talking about the entire thing. Now I'll try to remember use the application word. So basically I'll say I'll restart the application. But if I forget, please keep in mind that both of them pretty much mean the same thing. And what you'll notice right now that if I go back to the dashboard and if I remove, I'm not going to see those console logs. And this was exactly what I was looking for. So let me just try it out with the server, whether this works. So instead of 4 console logs with hello, I'm just going to go with 2. So in this case, I can clearly see the 2. But if, again, I'm going to do something on a front end, I won't see those hellos. Why? Well, because I only care about the front end. And if your result is exactly the same, we're moving in the right direction, I'm going to remove those silly hello logs from the server. And now we can move on to our next topic.